Welcome back. Earlier in this course, Professor Fu already walked us through the first part, the risk pyramid, the banned uses, and the basic idea behind this law. Now, I'd like to carry on into the second half of our Ethics EU AI course. I won't go back over what's been covered. I'll just pick up where Professor Fu left off, with the one question it leaves us with. When an AI decides something about a person and gets it wrong, who is actually accountable? So in this presentation, let's go and look for the answer. Before you look at a single slide, do something for me. Close your eyes. Give me 3 seconds. Now picture this. Tomorrow, you've got an interview for a job you really, really want. You spent 3 evenings on your CV, fixing it, polishing it, getting it just right, and you send it off. Here's what you don't know. The first thing to read your CV isn't a person. It's an AI. It took about maybe 1 second to decide you don't even get an interview. You spent 3 days, it spent just 1 second. Is that unfair? Maybe. But here's the part that should really bother you. You don't even know who to complain to. The machine won't take your call, and the company just shrugs and says, "Sorry, the system decided." That's the question that stumped us in the first half. So in the second half, we look at something I think is genuinely brave, how the EU actually answers it. They didn't write a nice essay about being good. They did something much harder. They turned AI must be accountable into black-letter law, with fines big enough to really hurt if you get it wrong. I'll walk you through 5 stops: what companies actually have to do, how this law reaches all the way to us, what people are angry about, a few true stories, and then we'll wrap up. Ready? Let's go. Before we charge ahead, take 20 seconds and recarve the single most important picture from the first half into your brain, the risk pyramid. It's the skeleton of this whole law. The EU has a clever way of looking at AI. It doesn't ask how clever or how flashy your AI is. It asks one thing: how big a mess could it cause? The higher up the pyramid, the higher the risk, the stricter the rules. The little red bit at the very top is absolutely banned. However brilliant, this kind of AI is off limits. Below it, the orange high risk, you can use it, but the rules pile up, and this layer is today's main character. Below that, the yellow. Just be honest and label it. And the big green base at the bottom is 99% of the AI in your daily life. Spam filters, video recommendations, where the EU basically waves a hand and says, use it freely, I won't get involved. Remember the shape of this triangle. In a moment, you'll notice that every single rule we cover today hangs off it. Right. First stop, what companies have to do and who's in charge of making them. I'll be honest with you, this is the hardest, most law textbook part of the whole talk. Bear with me, because it answers a question that's very much about you. The day you join a company, what will this law actually make you do? I'll show you 4 things. 1 duty everyone forgets, 2 different roles, a list of high-risk jobs, and a fine big enough to make a CEO's heart skip a beat. Before we dive into detail, here's a map so you don't get lost. This law has an important habit. It doesn't switch on all at once. It comes in stages, a bit at a time, like toothpaste out of a tube. Look at the timeline. February 2025. The banned uses and AI literacy came first, and those are already live, present tense, not future. 6 months later, August 2025. General purpose AI, the watchdog bodies, and the fines. Then August 2026, the transparency duties. The important bit is those 2 red blocks on the right, the high-risk duties. They were meant to start in August 2026, but a reform called the Digital Omnibus has pushed them back to the end of 2027. You might ask, why the delay? There's a great fight behind that, and we'll get to it at stop 5. For now, just remember one thing, and lots of people get this wrong. As I record this, the delay has not yet been published in the EU's official journal. In plain terms, legally, the original August 2026 deadline is still standing. It hasn't been switched off. So every lawyer in the world is telling clients the same thing. Don't slack off, prepare for the original date. With the law, if you bet it'll be delayed and you're wrong, that bet costs money. Let's start with a duty you've probably never thought about, but no company can dodge. AI literacy. Article 4. Now you see original English text on screen. Read it out loud first. Done? Good. It's saying something really simple. In plain words, any company that uses AI has to make sure the people actually operating it have a sufficient level of AI literacy. What does literacy mean? Don't overthink it. Here's a comparison. You don't need to be able to fix an engine to drive a car, right? But you do need to understand that when the red light on the dashboard comes on, it means stop. AI literacy is reading that red light. 3 parts, roughly. 1, you know what this AI can and can't do. 2, when it hands you an answer, you don't just swallow it whole with your eyes shut. 3, you know when you simply shouldn't be using it at all. Why am I putting this first? Because it's the foundation of the whole law. Small spoiler for later. The law will say a high-risk AI must always have a human kept in the loop, someone watching, able to hit the brakes. Sounds reassuring, doesn't it? But think about it. If the person they put there can't actually understand what the AI is doing, then them clicking approve is no different from a rubber stamp. And someone's accountable becomes a very expensive piece of theater. So you see, literacy sounds like the most boring bit, but it's the most important. Without it, every protection that comes later is hollow. One last, slightly ironic update. This reform softened Article 4, from ensure literacy to merely support the development of literacy. Just 2 words? Rights groups don't think so. They're up in arms. More on that at Stop 5. Right. This slide is the most important idea in this talk, so do hold on to it. With the same AI, the law doesn't do the silly thing and dump all the responsibility on one person. It's cleverer than that. It spreads responsibility along this value chain, one stretch at a time. Look at the ribbon at the top. An AI is built, put on the market, imported or resold, and finally actually used by some company. And at each step, those are different people, different hands. Here's a comparison you know well. It's like a meal. The farmer who grows the veg, the lorry driver, the supermarket that stocks it, the restaurant that cooks it for you. If you get food poisoning, do we only blame the restaurant? Of course not. Each step has its own duty to get right. AI is exactly the same. The one at the front, the provider, is whoever builds the AI and sells it under their own name. They carry the most. Run risk management, clean up the training data, write proper technical documentation, and stick on a CE mark, like the safety label on a kettle. The one at the end, the deployer, is the company that buys it and uses it. Their job is different. Use it per the instructions, put a person who actually understands it in charge of watching it, and report serious incidents. See? This connects straight back to literacy. The person you put on watch has to be someone who can read the red light. So back to our opening question, who's accountable? The EU's answer is mature and frankly a bit wise about life. Don't grab one unlucky person to carry it all. Instead, every hand that touched it carries its own stretch. Most things in this world were never one person's fault and shouldn't be one person's burden either. We've covered what you must do. Now the practical bit. What if you don't? The answer is Article 99, and the fines have been switchable on since August 2025. 3 tiers. Look at the left. Top tier, the heaviest, break those absolutely banned things at the peak, and it's €35 million, or 7% of your worldwide annual turnover, whichever is higher. In a second, I'll have you read the line on screen. You'll see the last words, whichever is higher. Those words have a real edge to them. You might think, 7%? That doesn't sound like much. That's because you haven't done the maths. For a multinational turning over hundreds of billions a year, what is 7%? It's a whole year of hard work, with a big chunk of it spent working for the EU's treasury. Look at the chart on the right. I've drawn the sizes out on purpose. The big red one, AI Act Article 5, 7%. The grey one in the middle, the Data Protection Law, GDPR, which you've probably heard of, 4%. See that? The EU deliberately made this heavier than the Data Protection Law. It's telling the whole world, this time we mean it. Here I want to correct something loads of articles online get wrong. The last tier, giving false information, is 1%, not 1.5. A pile of articles say 1.5. That's wrong. That 1.5 actually belongs to a different rule for fining the EU's own institutions. I know, telling you to go back and read the original official journal sounds like a buzzkill. But that's the difference between doing research and just reposting whatever you scrolled past. The devil is always in the decimal point. You're someone who's going to write a doctoral thesis. That habit will save your life one day. But honestly, the thing I most want you to take away isn't the numbers. It's this idea. The fine itself was never the point. It's the backbone that turns every rule we just covered from talk to we mean it. Ethics with no teeth ends up as a poster on the wall that nobody reads. What the EU did this time is give ethics a real set of teeth.
Stop 2. Global impact. I can guess what you're thinking. This is Europe's law. What's it got to do with us? This stop is here to tell you it has quietly reached us already. You just hadn't noticed. First, we'll look at a piece of magic I find genuinely amazing, the Brussels effect. And then we'll put the EU and Taiwan side by side. First, that bit of magic. Scholars gave it a name, the Brussels effect. Brussels is where the EU's headquarters are. The idea is this. The EU is only one region of the planet, yet it has the power to turn its own rules into rules the whole world has to follow. How does it manage that? Look at the 3 steps on screen. Step 1, extraterritorial reach. The AI Act is blunt about it. As long as the output of your AI is used by someone inside the EU, then even if your company is in Taipei or in Silicon Valley, sorry, you're covered by this law. Step 2, think how a multinational boss thinks. I've already spent a fortune building one full compliance setup to get into the EU. Am I really going to build a second, looser, cheaper version for other countries? Too much hassle. No. Step 3. So they just go with one standard for everywhere. The EU standard spills over and becomes the world standard. This road's been walked before, by the way, by the Data Protection Law, GDPR. Think about it. These days, whatever website you open, doesn't a cookie consent pop-up appear? Annoying, right? And I bet you click agree without reading a word of it. Don't deny it. That pop-up isn't there because every country passed the same law. It's there because no company wants to build a separate version of its website just for the EU. That's exactly the force the AI Act wants to copy. So what's this got to do with you? Loads. If you work for a company in Taiwan later, especially one that exports, even if you follow every Taiwanese law to the letter, the moment your AI service can reach EU users, you're bound by the AI Act. The 2 you'll bump into most. 1, chatbots have to honestly say, I'm an AI. 2, if you build a hiring tool, it may well be classed as high risk straight away. So like I said, this was never someone else's problem. It's yours.
Let's put the EU and Taiwan side by side, and it gets clearer. First, credit where it's due. Taiwan moved fast. It passed its Basic Act on Artificial Intelligence late last year, and it came into force this January. But the road it took is very different from the EU's. Look at the ruler along the top. On the left, strict, hard law. On the right, light touch, principles-based. The EU stands at the far left. Taiwan and Japan sit towards the right. What's the difference? Look at the table. The EU's is a hard law. 113 articles, break it and you're fined. Taiwan's is a framework law. 20 articles, more about setting the big direction and principles first. The EU's tools are the whole kit we just covered. Taiwan, for now, sets out 7 big principles, but puts no immediate duties on companies and has no fines, instead giving each sector's regulator about 2 years to write its own detailed rules. I'd like you to look at this table through this term's lens. This really isn't about who's right and who's wrong. It's 2 societies facing the same hard thing, making different choices. The EU puts don't hurt people first, and the price is being told off for being too slow, stifling innovation. Taiwan and Japan put let industry get moving first, and the price is that some risks may be reined in later than they should be. You ask me which is right, I won't give you the answer. Because the longer I've lived, the more I've come to understand one thing: questions like this have never had a right answer. Only trade-offs, and what you're willing to pay for your choice. Keep that one in your back pocket and turn it over slowly. Which side would you choose?
Stop 3. The controversy. A law this big, making everyone happy? Not a chance. But here's the fun thing. It's being told off by both sides at once. One side says it's too strict. The other says it's too soft. Let's open up both sets of voices and listen.
This slide is my secret favorite because it trains a real skill, hearing both sides at once. The same AI Act is being fired at by two completely opposite forces at the same time. Listen to the left first, industry. In July 2025, an open letter appeared called Stop the Clock, signed by 49 bosses of top European companies, Airbus, ASML, Mercedes, all on it. They said the standards aren't even out yet, so how are we meant to comply? Compliance costs a fortune, and at this rate, Europe will be left behind by the US and China. The EU was rock hard at first. Its spokesperson said out loud, there is no stopping the clock. And then what? Look at the timeline below. By November, the EU itself produced the omnibus and really did push high risk back to the end of 2027. So that round, industry basically won. But on the right, the rights groups were furious. They said pushing the high-risk duties back, in plain words, means pushing back the protection for ordinary people, too. At one point, more than 133 organizations signed a letter begging the EU please not to reopen this law because they feared it would set a very bad precedent, that from now on, the moment companies lean on lawmakers, the rules protecting people can be simplified away. I'd like you to pause on this line in the middle. The same law told off by one side for being too tight and the other for being too loose. It sounds like it pleases nobody, a bit sad. But flip it around. Being able to annoy the capitalists and the human rights campaigners at the same time, that's actually not easy. Usually, when one thing makes both sides unhappy, there are only two possibilities. Either it's genuinely useless, or it's landed right on some hard truth nobody wants to face. I lean towards the second.
Dig under those arguments and you'll find 3 sets of values underneath. Deep ones, and genuinely hard to satisfy at the same time. Set 1. Freedom to innovate versus preventing harm. Too loose, and you might raise a monster that hurts people. Too tight, and you might stifle the next world-changing thing. It's like driving. Foot flat on the accelerator feels great, but you'll crash sooner or later. Ride the brake the whole way, though, and, well, you never get anywhere. The EU chose to ride the brake a bit more, and the price is being called a slow coach. Set 2. Privacy versus security. The classic case is facial recognition. Banned in principle, but with a back door left open for catching criminals. And there's the rub. To catch one criminal, you let everyone in the city be recognized and tracked as they walk down the street. Is that a fair trade? Where exactly do you draw that line? Nobody has a perfect answer. Set 3. Profit versus social responsibility. Every rule we've covered, translated into plain words, means this costs money. So who pays? Does the company swallow it? Quietly raise prices and pass it to you and me? Or just pull out of the EU and not play? I'll close this stop with this line. The AI Act has not solved these tensions. Honestly, they can't be solved. What it did was simply draw a temporary position for all of Europe on each of these 3 lines. And that big reform fight we watched these past months is at heart those positions being reopened and renegotiated. So you see, ethics is never settled once and for all, peace forever. It's a negotiation that never stops. Rather like being a person. Stop 4. Cases. After all that law, I know your head might be starting to ache a bit. So I want to use a few true stories to bring these cold rules to life.
And I promise you, by the end of them, you'll see that what these rules protect is, in fact, you and me. Two classic stories first. Story 1, gender bias in CV screening. There was a world-class tech company that built an AI to filter CVs automatically. Later, they found something deeply awkward. The AI was systematically giving women lower scores. Why? Because it learned from that company's hiring data over the previous 10 years. And over those 10 years, most of the people hired were men. So, did you spot it? This AI had no malice at all. It was just too honest. It took the bias that company had, bias it probably hadn't even noticed in itself, and learned it faithfully, and then amplified it. Sometimes the creepiest thing isn't an AI lying, it's an AI being too honest. It's a mirror, showing us the self we've been pretending not to see. That tool was quietly scrapped in the end. Through today's lens, hiring sits in the high-risk employment box. It breaks Article 10, data governance. And who should have caught it? Gate 6, the person who can read the red light. See? Every rule we covered earlier joins up right here. Story 2 is heavier, a wrongful arrest from facial recognition. It has genuinely happened in some countries. Police used facial recognition to match a suspect, the machine matched the wrong person, and an entirely innocent person was arrested. And study after study after study finds the same thing. These systems get it wrong far more often for darker-skinned people and for women. The matching rule is Article 5, real-time facial recognition in public spaces, banned in principle. This is the most painful front line of that privacy versus security fight we talked about. I'd like you to remember what these two stories share, and this is the one line I most want to give you today. These errors are not as simple as a small bug in the code. The truly frightening part is this. They take a bias society already had and wrap it up as a computed answer that looks scientific, objective, neutral. Once it's wearing that the AI worked it out coat, the bias becomes harder to question. A person discriminates against you and you can at least argue. A machine discriminates against you and they tell you that's just what the system calculated. That is what's most dangerous.
Story 3, I've deliberately put last, and the newest, because it lets you watch, in real time, how a law actually grows. That's rare. Here's what happened. Generative AI was misused by bad actors to create non-consensual intimate images and face swap images. There's a word for it, nudifier. It blew up massively recently, and it's tangled up with the scandal around Grok. Through an ethics lens, why is this so serious? Because it tramples several lines at once. It crushes a person's dignity, strips away their autonomy, violates their right not to be treated this way. And I'm going to say this slowly and heavily. When the victim may be a child, this touches the absolute core of what we've called duty ethics all term. Some things, no matter how much traffic, how much money, how much benefit they bring, simply must not be done. There is no benefit on the other side that can be used to justify it. Not one. So how does the law respond? In this very reform, the EU added a 9th item to the banned list in Article 5. It expressly bans using AI to generate non-consensual intimate images and AI-generated child sexual abuse material. But I have to be very honest with you, and do look at that orange box at the bottom of the screen. As I record this rule has not yet formally been published in the EU's official journal. So the line in that box is a paraphrase, provisional, not the official text. Why do I make a point of saying that? Because in scholarship, being honest matters 100 times more than sounding impressive. And this happens to capture the most precious thing about this case. It lets you watch, with your own eyes, that the law, it breathes. The order goes, first, there's a moral instinct. People feel this is wrong. Then it explodes into a public scandal. And finally, it's written into law. Law was never a slab of stone carved once and done. It's alive, and it responds to people's anger and people's tears. So if you go on to build products or write code, please remember this line. The gap you leave today by cutting a corner, if someone uses it to do harm, may well be the reason the next law is born. Every line of code you write carries weight. Right. we've reached the last stop, the wrap-up. I want to boil this whole pile down to a few points that I hope you'll still remember even after you've forgotten all the detail, and then leave you with a few questions to take home. If out of these 2 lessons you could only pack 5 things to take with you, I'd want them to be these 5. 1. Risk decides force. How strictly something is governed should be proportional to how big the risk is. That pyramid, when you boil it down, is just the idea of proportionality turned into a system you can see and touch. 2. There are 2 kinds of ethics living in this one law at the same time. The banned items at the peak are duty ethics. Some things, however profitable, are simply not allowed. The risk tiers in the middle are consequence ethics. Look at how much harm you might cause, then decide how strictly to govern. One law, 2 moral logics living together peacefully. And honestly, that's how grown-ups usually are inside too. Some things are a matter of principle, some things you weigh by the consequences. 3. Responsibility can be shared out. The provider and the user each mind their own stretch. This is the EU's most mature answer to who's accountable. 4. Honesty is the floor. A bot has to admit it's a bot. AI-made content has to be labeled. Why? Because being deceived is itself a harm, even if it didn't cost you a penny. Being made a fool of just hurts. 5. The impact crosses borders. The Brussels effect means a company in Taiwan, even one running a shop on the corner, can't escape it the moment it can reach EU users. Once more, this isn't someone else's problem. It's yours. Finally, I want to end with questions, not answers, because this is also my own biggest takeaway from studying this subject. Rules are forever running, out of breath, behind the technology. This AI Act we looked at today is already humanity's most serious attempt yet. And yet, look, it's still being amended, still being argued over, still being chased by reality. So I'll leave you 3 questions to take home. 1. The high-risk duties got pushed back to the end of 2027. So in that gap, the people who were meant to be protected, who protects them now? For companies, it's a breather. For them, what is it? 2. This is the deepest one. Turn it over slowly. The law insists a high-risk system must always have a human who can step in. But when the AI is already more accurate and faster than a person at some task, do we keep insisting on that one human because it's real accountability, or because it just gives us peace of mind? 3. This one's for the future you. The day it's your turn to make the call in a company, will you see compliance as a cost you're forced to pay, or as an investment in someone's trust? I've got no model answer for any of these, because they genuinely don't have answers yet. They're for your generation to answer, with your own hands. Back to that picture at the very start. An AI that never truly read your file decides your life. Who's accountable? My hope is that after today, the answer in your heart is a little clearer than before the lesson, and carries a little more weight. Thank you for walking this stretch with me. See you next time.